Hi, Annalisa Six here with the January 2023 horoscope for the sign of Virgo, sun and rising. Hi, Virgo, how are you? You've been dealing with a lot of conflict in your career and work environment, and it's time for that to start gaining some momentum this month. We're going to go ahead and just jump right into Mars retrograde cycle ending and talk about it. So Mars has been retrograde since the end of October in the sign of Gemini. And the area that that's hitting for the Virgo horoscope is the house of career. And Mars retrograde is not fun for anybody. It's not fun anywhere that it's hitting for anybody. But when it's happening at such a our career is such a major part of our life, like who we are out in the world, what we do. It feels almost like our struggles are for the whole world to see, or the conflict that we've been having is for the whole world to see. So it's frustrating because the conflict is in this very extreme part of our lives rather than like an interpersonal or private part of our chart where some people have had it. And, Gemini is the sign that rules communication. And, Mercury is currently retrograde, and Mercury rules Virgo as well as Gemini. Mercury is retrograde in Capricorn, and Mercury being retrograde in Capricorn and Mars being retrograde in the sign of Gemini that Mercury traditionally rules. That's hard. That's a really intense energy. And so we're starting the year out in that. And it's really important for you, Virgo. You're somebody that likes to have all of your problems accounted for and the solutions to them. Unfortunately, when we have these types of transits going on, it's really hard to foresee the types of problems or conflicts that can come up, even if we're really good at that. The other thing that can be hard for Virgo, though, is if you're on a team where maybe you did foresee those problems, but the team that you're on doesn't value that, or they don't care. And so you end up in the shit anyways, even for all of the ways that you've tried to avoid it. And sometimes that's part of the journey of learning the lessons of Mercury and Mars when they're retrograde, is finding ways to communicate through that and finding ways to solve problems through that, and these kind of more pragmatic, analytical ways that you already succeed in. But it can be frustrating when you feel like you're shouting through glass at the people that are not getting it or jumping on board. So let's talk about that. Mercury station retrograde on December 29th. It's going to be retrograde until about January 18th. Then we're going to be in the shadow period of it. So 10 days of shadow or a week of shadow afterwards. So we're still not in the clear. So all of January, your ruler is basically like, take a back seat and just get through it. You're going to be putting out fires. That retrograde is happening in your house of creativity, in the area of the chart that represents creativity and self-expression. So again, creative solutions, finding creative ways to combat the things that are not working, and reflect and review. Oftentimes, I think one of the things that I know about my own Virgo placements and the Virgo people in my life is that we tend to, and I'm not a Virgo sun, but I have Mercury in Virgo, so I think a lot like a Virgo. We tend to think that we can see all the problems, but we can't always. And sometimes we're accounting for our way of looking at things. We're not always accounting for the way other people are going to analyze and look at things. So I think part of the reflect and review for Virgo is opening yourself up to the fact that there's different ways of doing things, different ways of learning. And sometimes there's problems that we just can't always anticipate happening. It's like, we might be like, oh, everything's good for the day. And then you blow a tire and it's just like, who knew that was going to happen that day? And your whole day is just not anything anymore, right? You're just like, well, shit, there goes that. So that's common during Mercury retrograde. It's common during just retrograde cycles for those types of things to be lessons for us. And for you, finding creative solutions and being open to learning from the challenges and the conflict is a big part of that. So the other thing that's happening at the beginning of January for you is Venus is going to be entering Aquarius at the beginning of the month on the 3rd. And the area of the chart that's hitting for Virgo has a lot to do with things that you already excel in. So your daily routines, your structure of how you manage your day, and how you're of service to others. And so some of these things that you are learning through this retrograde cycle, Venus is going to kind of come in and help create some resolution around that. So even if you feel like things are kind of out of your control, the fact that Venus is kind of blessing the area of the chart that has to do with establishing routines and different structures, I think is really positive. And then you might also be in a more team oriented mode to kind of figure out those solutions with multiple people, because that Aquarian energy has a lot to do with that. It's also really auspicious for your personal health. So if you have any goals to kind of start the year out with some health goals in mind, Venus is definitely making that easier for you, despite Mars and Mercury being retrograde. The other major thing that we have going on is Jupiter has entered Aries again. It entered Aries in December, and it is going to be within the first 5 degrees of Aries for the entire month of January. Where that is hitting in the Virgo chart, it has to do with shared resources, your sexuality, and the way that you're connecting to the people that you share your resources with. I can't help but think of my own Virgo mom through this, and I'm not going to share any of my mom's personal information, but her shared resources are with a lot of members of our family, and Jupiter is really auspicious. It's a really, really abundant and good energy for this particular area of the chart. And so I think that when I'm reflecting on my very Virgo family member and kind of her situation and the things that have been going on in her life that are making me think of this, I'm thinking that there's been so much work put in to making everything work. And it's just been a process, because so much in her life has changed. So much in everybody's life has changed. And Jupiter, I think, coming into this area is very auspicious. It's very much like, let's elevate and enhance and allow for these things to work. And so even though we're probably not going to see a lot of those benefits closer to February, it's still a positive energy in that area of the Virgo chart. It's enhancing and expanding that. So it's great for kind of investments too, and also kind of figuring out money stuff and inheritance. So if there's any inheritance or any money that you're sharing with multiple people, kind of the systems around that are important to kind of figure out and work through, and it's supported. But again, don't really take any action until the end of the month, when Mercury and Mars are out of that shadow period. We enter Aquarius season on the 20th, and then Uranus stations direct on the 22nd. And so Uranus has been retrograde in Taurus, and that's been hitting the area of the chart that has a lot to do with your values and your beliefs. And so once Uranus stations direct, breakthrough energy at the end of the month with this kind of energy, you might kind of have some breakthroughs on the way you perceive things and what your values are. You might be kind of expanding your values as well. Some new insights. I think that it's going to be a kind of, the end of the month is going to be a breakthrough for all of us. We're going to have more momentum. We're not having any more retrogrades, and we're kind of in this place where it's like, okay, now the year is starting. The year is not starting on January 1st. The year is starting February 1st in my mind. I'm like, that's when shit is really going to start to feel like it's moving. So let's get into the moon. So the new and full moon that are happening in January, and where that's affecting Virgo. So the full moon is what we have first. We have a full moon at 16 degrees of Cancer on January 6th. And that moon is going to be influencing your area of your chart that has to do with the groups that you associate with in your friendship circles. This might be one of those times where you're reflecting a lot on how people make you feel. Cancer is all about feelings. And so if there's people in your life that you really love, you might be really wanting to thank them, connect with them, and make those bonds closer. If there's people in your circle where you're like, I do not like how this person is making me feel, you might feel more inclined to need to cut them off or end the relationship. Full moons, we tend to want to let go and release energy. So that could also be a theme where you're releasing things in your life that are no longer serving you around the groups of people you associate with. We have our new moon on January 21st at 1 degree of Aquarius. And again, that area of the chart that has to do with your daily routines, your health, kind of your structure. This is almost like, I feel like the new moon at the end of January is really the new year. Like, I feel like that's kind of what is really the catalyst for us starting to feel like now it's a new year, not January 1st. January 1st is just like the transits are just so much more stifled and slow and introspective. And then when we get to this new moon on January 1st in Aquarius, it's a lot more like, it's time to move forward. It's time to improve upon everything. It's time to kind of get shit moving. And for you, Virgo, for sure, like, you're very much like, okay, I've taken what I've learned from the last 5 months, and I'm ready to put that into action. I have a clear idea of what I want to do. So setting intentions around your health and daily routines in that way is really positive, and kind of getting, Virgo likes to have that plan. So getting your plan really intact is really positive for you. So yeah, I think overall January is going to be a pretty difficult month for most of us, just because we're entering it with so much retrograde energy, and it's just kind of a funky way to start the year. But I do think that it's setting the stage for us to really kind of learn and figure out what it is that we want to do moving forward. And it's just typical when we're in these types of cycles for that to happen. So I've been doing this long enough now, not forever, but long enough to be like, okay, like, yes, those transits are not going to make us feel like this is a momentous new year. We're just kind of like, all right, let's see what happens. And I think it's a good approach to be in that place of like, I'm open to learn, and I'm not going to try to force anything, and I'm going to wait until February to really, see kind of the fruits of what I've been working on. So that is your forecast for January 2023. Good luck, Virgo.